I'm sure that you've been in this situation before. You have a goal. You know exactly what it is you want to achieve. You might even have a plan. And yet, despite all of that, somehow you don't get there. You find yourself just having failed to do what you said you were going to do. If this sounds familiar to you, then you are not alone. And while it's easy to blame things like distractions or busyness, the real problem usually runs much deeper than that. What if your biggest obstacle isn't outside of you at all, but rather inside of your mind? In today's video, we're going to talk about why so many people hold themselves back without even realizing it, how this happens, and most importantly, what you can do about it. Welcome to the channel. We live in a world where it seems like everyone is focused on personal growth, self-improvement, productivity, and success. But here's the thing, all of these things are easier said than done. Despite all of the tools and resources available to us, we still struggle with getting our lives together. And according to research, this is probably because of one of two things. Either we have a lack of clarity or we have a lack of belief. When it comes to our lack of clarity, that's usually something that we can fix by creating better systems, making better plans, and refining our strategies. But what about our lack of belief? While we're often able to come up with solid reasons why we shouldn't do something, we're not always able to come up with good reasons for why we should do something. As humans, we tend to think of ourselves in very black and white terms. That means that we either are or aren't something. For example, we're either good at something or we're bad at it. We either have the ability to do something or we don't. And when it comes to our own self-perceptions, this can lead us to miss out on some pretty important nuances. Most people have no idea how close they actually are to being successful at whatever it is that they say they want to do. And if you're struggling to believe in yourself, then this is probably because of something called fixed mindset thinking. This is the belief that qualities such as intelligence or abilities are things that are set in stone. Because of this, people with a fixed mindset tend to avoid challenges, give up easily, and feel threatened by the success of others. On the other hand, people who have a growth mindset believe that these qualities can be improved through hard work and dedication. They embrace challenges, learn from their mistakes, and use the success of others as inspiration. So if you struggle with believing in yourself, chances are that you're using fixed mindset type of thinking. And as you can imagine, this can really hold you back. According to Carol Duquette, a psychology professor at Stanford University who has spent years researching mindset, people with a fixed mindset are prone to a number of harmful thought patterns. For example, when faced with a setback, someone with a fixed mindset might think something like, "I'm just not good at this," or "this is just not for me." On the other hand, someone with a growth mindset might say something like, "I'm not good at this yet, but I can get better," or "this is challenging, but I'm up for it." Now, if you've heard me speak before, you'll know that I'm a big believer in identifying and challenging our negative thoughts. If you want to break free from any kind of limiting belief, then it's a good idea to first identify the belief, then ask yourself whether it's really true, and finally decide whether you agree with it. So let's go ahead and apply this to the example that I just gave. Is it true that you're not good at something? Well, maybe it's true, but does that mean that you can't become good at it? No, it doesn't. It simply means that you haven't gotten good at it yet. So is it really a good idea to base your entire sense of self-worth around whether or not you've gotten good at something? Probably not. Instead, maybe you could focus on whether or not you're getting better, and the only way to find out is to keep working at it. But it's not just fixed mindset thinking that holds us back. Most of us have another limiting belief that goes something like, if I start doing this thing that I've never done before, I'm expected to do a good job. And it's this belief that often leads to procrastination and inaction. Like, imagine you've always wanted to write a book, but you've never done it before. If you start writing a book and you expect yourself to do a good job, then when you don't, you'll feel like a failure. And that's not exactly going to motivate you to keep going. Instead, we need to give ourselves permission to do a bad job. By embracing the suck and allowing ourselves to be bad at something, we take the pressure off ourselves and we make it much more likely that we'll follow through. The author Tim Harford talks about this in his book, How to Be Both: A Guide to Doing Two Different Things at Once. He says that this idea was first popularized by the author Anne Lamott in her book, Bird by Bird. Lamott writes, "Almost everything I know about writing I learned in the first 5 pages of John Steinbeck's book, The Log from the Sea of Cortez. But the most important thing I learned, I did not learn from him. I learned it from a nun in a 3rd grade classroom. I was 7 years old, and she was trying to teach us how to write stories. She said, first you do a little free writing, and then you go back and you edit and you change stuff, and then you do it again and you edit and you change stuff. And after hearing this, I said, okay, I got it. And then she said, and remember, kids, you can do a bad job or you can do a sloppy job, but you can't do both. In my head, I'd been saying, well, I want to do a good job. And she said, you can't do both. Then it hit me. The secret to life is that no one is perfect. And since no one is perfect, no one can do everything perfectly. Love her or hate her, the third grade nun was right. And the older I get, the more I appreciate how true this is. In fact, I would argue that this is one of the most important things that we can learn in life. Not how to do everything perfectly, but how to do a bad job. If we can learn to do a bad job, then we can free ourselves from the fear of failure and we can allow ourselves to take risks. We can start new businesses, try new activities, or simply finish projects that we've been putting off. The truth is that we can't do everything perfectly. And when we try to, we often end up doing nothing at all. When we allow ourselves to do a bad job, we open ourselves up to the possibility of doing something great. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not suggesting that we spend our lives intentionally doing a bad job. In fact, I think that's ridiculous. But what I am saying is that we need to give ourselves permission to do a bad job from time to time. We need to be willing to fail, to make mistakes, and to learn from them. As Tim Harford puts it, if we take the expectation that we will do a good job, then we'll often end up doing a bad job. Because instead of spending energy on the actual task in front of us, we spend that energy worrying about what we're doing, worrying about whether we're good enough, worrying about whether we're doing it right. And that, I would argue, is what usually leads to failure. So what's the solution here? How do we escape the trap of perfectionism and allow ourselves to do a bad job? Well, first, we need to recognize that we don't need to do everything perfectly. Second, we need to give ourselves permission to do a bad job. And third, we need to celebrate our imperfections. We need to embrace the fact that we're all works in progress. And yes, this includes me too. So what are you waiting for? Go out there and do a bad job. Do it badly and do it often. Because in doing so, you'll free yourself from the chains of perfectionism and you'll open yourself up to the possibility of doing something great. Before you go, if you found this video helpful, please do me a favor and click the like button. This helps the algorithm and it helps my channel grow. Also, if you'd like to learn more about how to challenge your negative thoughts and reframe them in a more positive light, then check out this video here. Thanks for watching and see you next time.